I had a wonderful team. Like, I really did. I think it's just like understanding that no one at the end of the day is going to be in the room. Like, when you're actually doing the thing, you have to carry that moment and you have to carry that pressure. Also, making films, the hours on them are so demanding that to have your own life alongside that, to have that balance, is almost impossible. It's so all or nothing. It's so all-encompassing, especially if you're in a lead role. You kind of go through these, working 6 days a week, 14 to 16-hour days, and then you're just kind of dropped off at the end of it, and maybe you'll have a 2 or 3 month gap, and then there's just kind of like nothing. And so you're like riding this like incredible peak of like adrenaline and cortisol, and then you just get like dropped off the edge, and then you're like, okay, wait, now I have to be a functioning human again, and I have to like figure out how to be a person in the real world. And I think some of those extremes then force an actor to either decide, well, I'm going to back it, so I'm going to basically go from one movie to the next, and that's going to be my full life. Or you have to navigate these huge impacts on your nervous system that you need a system and a support system to help you navigate. And I think it's why addiction and mental illness in my profession and in a lot of high stress, high profile professions is so commonplace, because you're trying to balance out these enormous chemical ups and downs. It's funny, occasionally people will apologize to me for the fact they've not seen my films, and I will be like, please don't apologize. That is bliss to me, like music to my ears, that like you're not going to constantly be navigating, and me also navigating with you, this projection of me, or this Emma Watson avatar person will not be this ghost in the room. So that's happened a few times where people have been like, I'm really sorry. And I'm like, please don't apologize. I'm so relieved. I'm so incredibly relieved.
And then you realise they have the box set later on.
Yeah, no, oh my God, I hope not. But
DVD, yeah.
I mean, I guess like I want people to appreciate my work, but I think knowing you don't have to navigate that extra like degree of weirdness is helpful, a relief.
How do you help people get to know the real you at this stage in your life?
You have to carry that moment, and you have to carry that pressure. Making films, the hours on them are so demanding that to have your own life alongside that is almost impossible. Emma's tone is highly matter-of-fact and focused on responsibility, external demands, and real-world logistics, textbook TE. She doesn't dwell on inner emotion first, she analyzes the situation through its pressures and demands, showing a TE-first worldview. Clear external task orientation. Acknowledgement of role-based responsibility. Language is unemotional but efficient, e.g., carry the pressure, 14 to 16-hour days. This isn't emotional venting, it's rational observation about what success costs in her field, delivered without embellishment. She does not lead with her feelings, she observes, reports, and explains how things function. Dominant function, TE, extrovert thinking, seeks pragmatic clarity and structure. You kind of go through these, working 6 days a week, 14 to 16-hour days, and then there's just kind of like nothing. You're trying to balance out these enormous chemical ups and downs. This is classic SI, referencing physiological and experiential patterns over time. She describes structured cycles of activity and recovery. Observes systemic wear and tear, nervous system, adrenaline/cortisol. References historical personal patterns, not hypothetical what-ifs. The body memory, fatigue, come down, burnout, is a key SI domain. She's cataloging what repeated experience does to her. Auxiliary function, SI, introverted sensing, examines the memory, routine impact, and systematic stress. Then you're just dropped off, now I have to be a functioning human again. How do I help people get to know the real me? We start to see subtle but telling signs of inferior FI, personal values and identity surfacing under pressure. She doesn't begin from emotional vulnerability, instead, FI emerges after TE and SI outline the external landscape. The FI signals a disconnect between her inner world and her public-facing identity. An identity fatigue from being treated like an avatar. a longing to be understood authentically, not through projection. But even these are framed with distance, humor, or structure, a hallmark of FI inferior trying to protect itself in a TE world. Emerging inferior FI, introverted feeling, is suppressed but deeply feels personal emotion. There's very little speculative energy or abstract theorizing, which would signal NE. Instead, she's rooted in specific, real-life cycles, showing clear preference for SI over NE. There is notable absence of NE. Focus is specific and grounded.
You know, I wrote this play that I actually sent to you to read, but I actually read parts of it to people because I find that trying to explain sometimes how weird it is to be me, like I almost need aids. Like it's so difficult to convey how weird it is and how surreal sometimes that sometimes I'll just be like, can I just read you this thing I wrote because I think it's going to shortcut you somewhere. And so that's actually been incredibly helpful. And I'm so glad I went and did this creative writing masters and I've spent more time writing about my experiences because sometimes I can't even articulate it to myself. Like how are you supposed to explain something to someone else you can't really even understand for yourself? So I think writing, creative writing, making art has been the best therapy I've ever done because it's helped me get clarity and also just be able to laugh at myself and laugh at the situation. I think one-on-one therapy can be amazing, but there is a kind of intensity and a seriousness to that maybe when you're writing something down, and when I wrote the play, I wrote it for my friends and family, and I was able to kind of bring more of myself to the picture in a way, which is someone who's this is just nuts. I just can't, I can't, sometimes I just genuinely cannot believe that my life is my life. And I need a place I can put that.
Yeah. I loved, so just for everyone who's, hearing about the referencing of this play, Emma wrote a play
yeah.
which helped her closest friends and family understand her experience of life, basically.
Yeah.
Right? Was that a bad description?
No, it's not a bad description, but specifically, I wrote the play about me transitioning from basically being a full-time actress, an activist, to trying to move home and be a normal student and attend a normal university as a super famous person. And I basically kept a journal of what those experiences were like and chronicled them for my friends and family for about a year, and then performed it as a one-woman show at the end of the first year and handed that in as my first year piece of work. And yeah.
Did it get an A?
It got a distinction.
Oh, amazing. Great. There we go. I love it.
It actually did.
It.
Not that was the point, but it kind of wasn't the point. But I think the coolest thing was I read it for my roommate, for example, who's been living with me for 7 years. And he was like, wait, stop. He's like, is this actually how you feel? Do you actually feel this? And I was like, yeah, I wouldn't have written it if I didn't. And he was like, I had no idea that this was how you felt. And this is someone I live with. And so for me, who I perceive myself to be this massive open book, and actually I realized, I was like, wow, I think I'm doing a good job of bringing the people that I love along with me on what this feels like. And actually, I'm not saying nearly enough or explaining it in a way where it makes sense. Yeah. And so even my parents were just couldn't believe it, really.
I wrote this play because I find that trying to explain sometimes how weird it is to be me. Sometimes I can't even articulate it to myself. I was able to bring more of myself to the picture in a way. Here, FI starts coming forward through art. Writing becomes a tool to access and process her inner emotional reality. She acknowledges difficulty with direct emotional articulation, common for TE DOMs. Yet, her need for self-definition and to be seen accurately is strong. What's telling is that she doesn't naturally speak from FI, but instead uses writing as a detour to access it. This is a classic TE-FI polarity. Rather than, I feel, she says, let me read you this thing I wrote. That's FI protected by structure, safe expression through form. There is a kind of intensity and seriousness to therapy that maybe when you're writing something down. Sometimes I just cannot believe that my life is my life. I need a place I can put that. Her NE appears as a spark of reframing, connecting inner absurdity to artistic possibility. She recognizes how surreal her experience is. Looks for creative ways to explain herself. Uses symbolism and narrative to bridge personal and social understanding. NE here plays a supportive, exploratory role, giving her the language to reimagine identity, explain paradox, and find perspective. But it's not dominant, it's reactive, used when linear, TESI methods fail to explain the complexity of her lived experience. That's why she says, essentially, I can't explain it logically, can I read you something instead? NE and FI working around TE limits. Reinforce TESI base, structuring the emotional. Even when exploring FINE material, she never loses TE structure. She wrote the play for her first-year university project. The goal was clarity, help friends and family understand. Even vulnerable content is packaged with intention and delivery. This is not chaotic self-exploration. It's planned, targeted, evaluated, it got a distinction. A perfect example of TE and SI supporting the expression of FINE, not being overrun by it. FI emerges as the need to be understood, to express personal truth, and to process surreal inner emotions. NE supports emotional expression through writing, narrative, and reframing, but it's still controlled, not dominant. TESI still underpins everything, the art is a product with a purpose and structure. She reveals how difficult it is for TE-DOMs to express emotion without a system, hence, writing becomes the safe space. Emma Watson's final functional imprint is clear ESTJ. Across both parts, she displays a clear TESI foundation, structured thinking, emphasis on responsibility, real-world logistics, and past patterns. Emerging but fragile FI, deeply personal, hard to access, but powerfully motivating when given space. Supportive NE, offering emotional insight, reframing, and self-understanding, especially through storytelling. She is a strong example of an emotionally aware, introspectively developed ESTJ, where even creative and emotional expressions are delivered through structure and purpose, never chaos. So Emma Watson's MBTI result explains why she struggled so much with the intense, unpredictable and disorganized working style of the film industry. All these things she said are understandable and relatable. But despite this, moves like this in the media rarely happen without purpose. And most likely, that reason will reveal itself in time. What do you think happened? Also, were you surprised by the connection between her experiences and her MBTI type? Please tell us in the comments. Thanks for watching.